I fixed a bug with showing Vertex painted models. So this model is Vertex painted in Nomad Sculpt, and I wouldn't necessarily use this model for patterning because it's got the fur modeled into it. But if you wanted to carry over your Vertex painting from Nomad Sculpt, you can do that. The way to turn this on and off is you can select an individual model. So this is the muzzle here, and I can say show as solid color. Or if I wanted to, I could set the solid color here. So if I wanted to do this this way, um, if I want to see what something looks like in a particular color, I can. Alternatively, I can just say show as vertex painted. And if I want to manipulate all of these models at once, I can just select them all and say show as vertex painted or solid color. So this way I can jump back and forth really quickly. And the same kind of thing works with patterns. So if I go over here and I draw a seam here for a pattern and I cut this out, I can change the visibility the same way. So if I want to see what it looks like as a solid color, um, I can do this. And that ability to change the view for all of these items individually is available to you via the context menus. I've added a new tool to create seams on edge loops. So it's this icon here. I need to find a better icon for this, but this is where I'm at the moment. If you mouse over your model, it will show you the current edge you're on here, and then it will show you the edge loop seam that it would create if you clicked on it. So if I click there, I will get this. And the tool has some options to know about. This is how strict to be or how lax to be when tracing an edge loop. So this determines how much of an angle it will follow from edge to edge. So I have it turned all the way down now. If I turn it all the way up, then it's not going to go very far because it's going to look at the adjacent edges and determine that it exceeds the angle threshold for what to follow. So you can use this tool if you have a model that you've designed the topology in that makes sense for whatever you're patterning. And this, along with the edit line tool, can be used to select areas of the model. So if I right click and I say split at point, now I can go ahead and delete the parts of the seam I don't want. And I can keep doing this to make it easier to allow me to use some parts of the model or the model topology to create patterns. I've added context menus in both the model and layout view. So if you right click on something, you will get a menu that's contextually sensitive to what you're clicking on, meaning that it's whatever you're moused over, it's going to show you a menu relevant for that item. So in this case, if I want to turn on the wireframe, I can just do that. In some tools, additional menu options will appear at the bottom of the context menu if they're available inside that tool. So if I want to start a new line here, I can just click that and I'll get a new line. If you want to measure some data about a seam, in this case, one of the reasons I wanted this is I tend to make the neck holes on my fursuit heads too small. So then I'm limited with whom I can sell them to. And because I'm trying to get to fully digitally patterned models, I figured this is a great use case for this for Pandafold. So let's say, for instance, I want to know how big this area is. If I create a seam here, then I can right click here and say show information, and that will show me the length of that seam. If I have multiple seams, so say for example, I'm just going to sew a bunch of stuff here. If I want to know how much sewing I'm going to have to do or cutting, the software can measure the length of multiple seams at once. So if I just select all my seams and say show info, it'll tell me it's measured 3 seams, the names of them, and the total length. So this gives you an idea about the amount of time I'm going to have to spend cutting and sewing this. So if I'm comparing two different patterns that I've made for the same model, then it will give me an idea about how efficient I can be with one versus the other. It will also tell you the overall 3 dimensions of, or 3D dimensions of all the seams when they're combined. This is just there if you wanted to get an idea of the dimensions of it. It's not exactly accurate. I use this for these measurements for other things in the software. So it's just a quick way to get a rough guesstimate of the size. The Create Seam on Plane tool has had a very large amount of work done to it this release. What started out as fixing a couple of bugs wound up at a wholesale rewrite. This tool works by allowing you to click anywhere on the model and just draw a seam. So, for example, I originally wanted this tool to create cuffs for a full body model I was working on. In this case, I wanted this tool also for creating this balaclava. So if I go ahead and click plus here, I will get a seam now. And the seam is drawing anywhere that's enclosed by the plane. So if I move the plane off center here, the seam won't extend beyond the plane here. So you'll see that it ends at the end of the plane there and at the end of the plane there. One of the changes for this tool, for this release, is the ability to edit the lines that it makes. So in past releases, you really couldn't edit the lines out of this tool, but now in this release, you can. The other things to know about this tool is if you click somewhere on the surface of the model and you change the orientation of the plane, it will retain that between your clicks. So if you wanted to do parallel lines, it makes it much easier to do that. So now you could just do a parallel line here and there. If you want to align this to the center of the model, so in this case, let's say for instance, I wanted a seam for symmetry, I can just click on the align to and specify how to align it on the model. And now I have a seam down the center of this model. So there's a bunch of different things that this tool does. There are some hotkeys for this tool. So X, Y, and Z to indicate what plane you want it to switch to. So if I hit the Y key, it jumps to the Y plane. This tool has been thoroughly optimized so it will use all the cores on your computer and it's much quicker now. There's a new Windows installer for Pandafold. So instead of distributing it via a zip file like I was, it's now a proper setup.exe file. So if you open that, you'll get the classic installation experience. And it's very simple right now. It's just going to ask you where to install it, and that's about it. Once you've installed this, it will appear in your list of applications that have been installed so you can manage it from there. Another major change to the application is the way you cancel operations and tools. So we're in the create line tool here. Across all the tools, if you're in the middle of an operation and you hit escape, it will cancel the tool. And in the past, it was set up so if you right clicked once, it would cancel a tool. That's no longer the case. After feedback from users, it's been adjusted so that if you double right click, it will cancel the tool. And the reason for this is to make it so the navigation is more consistent, regardless of if you're in the middle of an operation with the tool or not. So you can pan with the right mouse button. And if you're in the middle of drawing a line, users were finding it frustrating that if you wanted to pan and you right clicked, it would cancel the tool. So that's the reason for this change. This works on Linux and Windows. On Mac, I have not been able to capture a double right click yet. I'm going to dig on that further, but you can always use escape to cancel any operation you're in the middle of with a tool. The navigation options are documented. If you mouse over the little mouse here and click on it, it will describe how navigation works across different platforms. And another important thing to know here is if you hold down Control and Alt, it will override any tool input and always force navigation input. So that way, if you're in the middle of something and you want to move the camera and the tool is interfering, Control and Alt, and then just navigate like normal. I've started adding help documentation to the software. It's very incomplete at the moment, but it is available for some tools and for some things. For navigation, it's the little mouse down here in the corner, and this will explain how you can navigate the software. And for specific tools, it's this icon right here. The help is, some of it's there, it's fairly incomplete. I'm having to write my own help system from scratch because I'm using a game engine to do this. So this will expand and eventually I have the ability to search and dig for things in here. But if you're curious how a specific tool works, then the help is in here for the various tools. So some of them include more detail um, on like how distortion works and everything else. If you have general questions about the application, you could hit me up on my Blue Sky. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you have access to a Telegram support group, or you can hit me up on Patreon and I answer questions there if you find the help to be insufficient or you have a specific issue or something you need help with.